every day, but I love reading in the summer when it's rainy. Hey guys, welcome to a new vlog. I'm going to be honest, there's no theme this week. I'm going to be reading Insurgent, so there might be slight spoilers. You can exit out altogether, or I always put down the chapters in the description of my videos, so when you see it says Insurgent update, you can skip to the next chapter because I am going to be talking about other things in this video. The other things, let's look at the weekly TBR. We have New Poets of Native Nations, edited by Heidi Erwich. I am about to get into this. I am on 193. Let's see what it's about. New Poets of Native Nations gathers poets of diverse ages, styles, languages, and cultures to present the extraordinary range and power of new Native poetry. Editor Heidi Erwich has selected 21 poets whose first books were published since the year 2000 to highlight Native poets in this century. So next we do have Insurgent, who I do not have a dust jacket on this. This is the second book in the Divergent series. We have a lot of division. I think that's one of the main themes here, is just how little things that people can't help that they're born with get divided, and that division and putting, I don't want to say putting labels on things is a bad thing. I'm somebody who I don't believe in labels. Like, I'm fine with other people doing it, but me, I'm like, I just live my life. That's what I do. But that's what this is about. I am like 70% of the way into that, so we definitely will be starting Allegiant this week. My mood read is Lincoln by Gore Vidal. This is a character study on Abraham Lincoln. Lastly, we have my ebook, and that is Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. It is a golden age. Intrepid hyperspace scouts expand the reach of the Republic to the farthest stars. Worlds flourish under the benevolent leadership of the Senate, and peace reigns, enforced by the wisdom and strength of the renowned order of Force users known as the Jedi. With the Jedi at the height of their power, the free citizens of the galaxy are confident in their ability to weather any storm. But even the brightest light can cast a shadow, and some storms defy any preparation.
Nightmares, but I must be too tired, because my mind stays empty. When I open my eyes next, he's gone. No. All I can do is decide if I trust Marcus or not. On the sidewalks, the dauntless and the factionless have gathered between them, a narrow divide separating one group from the other. And before them stand Evelyn. Strumming softy, says Christina. Really? No, not at all, actually. Just let me fix it, okay? Hold still. She takes the cap off a black tube about the size of one of my fingers, revealing a red stick.
I read 127 pages, getting me to 90% of the way into Insurgent. So yes, we will definitely be finishing this book tomorrow and starting Allegiant. I have a few notes I'm going to say right now. There might be spoilers, so if you don't want that, skip ahead to the next segment in the vlog. And that's listed down below in the description of how to get there. So my first note is coming to us in chapter 33. I definitely was not expecting that scene to be a simulation. We have Trish, who is put into, well, we don't see her be put into it, but she wakes up and Tobias is there and he is trying to get them to escape, but it's all, she suddenly wakes up in the simulation telling him, she's like, this isn't real, this is a simulation, you wouldn't really do this. And the author had me, Veronica Roth had me. I thought it was real life, but it was not. Next, in chapter 37, I am wondering, because this big thing here is finding out what it is that the erudite wanted from the abnegation and what caused this war to happen. And apparently it is what is outside the walls of the city, what that threat is. And I'm like, what if they are all in a social experiment? Because Marcus tells Trish that they were placed there, placed in Chicago. What if somebody is like watching them and this is all one big social experiment that's been going on for years, or maybe it was forgotten about? theories. No, 458, which is in chapter 41, that's where we get the title Insurgent. That is where we first hear that word coming to us from the character of Fernando. Come on, Insurgent, he says with a wink. What, I say? I take his arm and slide down the side of the truck. He opens the bag he was sitting with. It is full of blue clothes. He sorts through them, tossing garments to Christina and me. I get a bright blue t-shirt and a pair of blue jeans. Insurgent, he says, noun, a person who acts in opposition to the established authority, who is not necessarily regarded as a belligerent. So that's what the title of the book means, and those are all my thoughts on Insurgent for the day. It is Tuesday. I did vote today, but I did also finish Insurgent. I am ending up giving this a 3.25, mainly because the character work. The characters were so angsty in this sequel, and I hated that. I get that the majority of our cast are teenagers and that this is a young adult book, but by the end of the book, the adult characters, Tori, they were acting immature and angsty, and why? I'm not here for that. It was so annoying, and I wonder if the audiobook had some issue with that, because the way the words are being spoken, making it sound angsty. I don't know, but we are going to read Allegiant physically, so we'll have to see where that goes. But the relationship between Trish and Ford, they were constantly bickering and fighting. And there was this one scene at the end where I'm like, are you really doing this right now? Is this the time and place that y'all need to be doing this? No. It was making me mad because it made them less likable. So I did give the character rating a 2-star, but the setting, it was so expanded upon in this. Usually the first book in a series is when you get all that world building and then you just move on, but no, we had so much world building in this, and I was just making theories. Y'all know I was making theories all throughout of where this could go, and I was having a fun time with that. The writing wasn't bad, but it wasn't as thoughtful as the first book in the series. And there were some instances where, like, physical reactions is only about her throat feeling tight, where those got repetitive. And I'm like, okay, can you, like, maybe, I don't know what a thesaurus for sayings, like, can you find something, use different kind of reactions for your characters to have? The plot was a step up in this installment because we are seeing these factions go to war with one another, and it's asking big questions of, as humans, is there any hope for us? Are we always going to be violent beings? And just, is every human prone to violence? Will every society, civilization have that downfall into violence? Is that necessary? Is that part of being human? And the building throughout this story was done in a fantastic manner, especially the last 10%. I loved the payoff. Let's talk about the intrigue. There were moments where the story lagged because a lot of it was just like the same compared to the first book in the series, but that last quarter was so strong. I was having out loud reactions. Y'all can go watch my short form content because that's where that was happening, where I was just freaking out reading this, and I really didn't know where it could go, and that is why I am so excited to start Allegiant. But as for the logic, it wasn't done poorly, but Divergent did it better, because there were some moments, like I talked about the fight between Ford and Trish, where I'm like, are y'all really doing this? Like, that's such a questionable time for the characters to be doing that, and ultimately unnecessary for the plot of the story, in my personal opinion. So I did like this book. I had fun with certain parts of it, but there were moments, especially with that character work, where I was rolling my eyes. It was angsty, annoying, immature, and I wasn't here for it. Guys, it is so hot, but it's August. I'm going to be starting Allegiant next, so I figured, since I do have a dust jacket on this, I will read the description. This is the third book in the series, so if you do not want to know, skip to the next bit. The faction-based society that Trish Pryor once believed in is shattered, fractured by violence and power struggles, and scarred by loss and betrayal. So when offered a chance to explore the world past the limits she's known, Trish is ready. Perhaps beyond the fence, she and Tobias will find a simple new life together, free from complicated lies, tangled loyalties, and painful memories. But Trish's new reality is even more alarming than the one she left behind. Old discoveries are quickly rendered meaningless. Explosive new truths change the hearts of those she loves, and once again, Trish must battle to comprehend the complexities of human nature and of herself while facing impossible choices about courage, allegiance, sacrifice, and love. Told from a riveting dual perspective. Oh, I didn't know it was dual perspective. I did not realize that. Okay, Allegiant by #1 New York Times bestselling author Veronica Roth brings the Divergent series to a powerful conclusion while revealing the secrets of the dystopian world that has captivated millions of readers in Divergent and Insurgent. I read 10% in Allegiant. It is one page longer than Insurgent, so I do think it'll take me about the same amount of time, but I'm not gonna have that binge time that I had over the weekend since I did start this on a Tuesday. But what is currently happening is the war is over and now we are in a factionless society, and seeing how things are going to be without factions and after the war as everybody recovers. The first note I have is that this has been great at putting us back into the story. Obviously, I'm reading them back to back to back, but it's making recalls back to to book 1 and book 2, really getting you immersed right back into the story. And I forgot to put a chapter, but it's chapter 7. Let me click that. Do y'all hear all that back there? But it's really showing that obviously this is different than our government here because it's a different kind of political system, but the system is just like the next for those being oppressed. We just have, I always quote from Game of Thrones, this one on top, then that next one on top, and on and on it goes. We're seeing one oppressive leader to the next, one like dictator to the next. But a lot of this does remind me so much of the Hunger Games because it's outside of what this, I don't know if I said because it's so hot, but my theory of this being a social experiment, being some kind of experiment that is looking like it's true. But that outside group is reminding me of like District 13. And then we have everybody else is inside Chicago. We will just have to see where this goes and what kind of government they get by the end of it. I just got back from the store. It's Wednesday. I'm going to show y'all what I got. I did get one book. We'll save that for the last thing. The first thing, vitamin C serum, because I have been out and I've really been needing it. Q-tips, you need them for all of that. Literally all of that. I'm not going to be using it on my electronics, but ears and makeup. And lastly, the book. I got Daggermouth by H.M. Wolf. This is a dystopian romance that was all the rage on TikTok. I don't remember if it was this year or last year, but that's when it was independently published, self-published. I'm not exactly sure which one it was. They have traditionally published the book now. Scarlet Press, who is an imprint of Simon & Schuster. So we have the front end pages. Sorry if you hear the lawnmower. It's really hard to show y'all what that looks like. You can only really see it in certain lighting. And then these end pages. And then I showed y'all the sprayed edges. We've been reading a lot of dystopian lately. I say a lot. We're halfway through our dystopian month. So I did go and pick up another one. I read 86 pages in Allegiant, getting me to 26% of the way into the book. And right now, again, spoilers as per usual, the characters have left Chicago. They've gone past the wall and they are in this whole other world, finding out that everything they thought they knew, like their society, just everything was a lie. Like imagine if we got told we're in a simulation or something like that, where it's kind of like these scientists who are at this genetic bureau, I'll explain, are playing Sims with them basically, except they do have free will, but it's just everything they've been taught has kind of been the truth kind of bent a little bit. It's not exactly a lie, but there's just a little bit more to it. And it is very overwhelming reading this because this is where it does get very science fiction. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a lot to take in, but also the characters, they're feeling the same way. And the scientists are like, we know this is a lot. But what did I mean by the Bureau of Genetics? The history of what made this a dystopian. Back a few centuries ago, there were genetic experiments going on, really going with nature versus nurture, or, I think it's nature versus nurture. They're doing experiments with that. So some people's genes get damaged. That causes the Purity War, which is a civil war of the people with the damaged genes going against the government and people with the non-damaged genes. So therefore, in cities like Chicago, we have an experiment where they are all put into like the factions to heal the genes. And when somebody is born Divergent, that means their genes have been healed. So that is all that backstory. So I do think the theme of this is nature versus nurture. Is that even a debate you can have, or does everything that makes us human, is it just nature in our genes? It's a lot to take in. I'm thinking in the first book, it's talked about that some people in Dauntless mysteriously vanish. They think they commit suicide, and a lot of those people might have been Divergent. So I'm wondering if those people actually went outside of the walls and have gone back to society. But with the Genetic Bureau, so that is the one who put on the experiment, like putting them in Chicago and having them in this wall, having them in a secluded space. They're the ones running this experiment. So this is all, like, I'm very intrigued by all this. I find this very fascinating, but a lot of it is a lot of info at once, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But I'm sure as the book goes on, we are going to get a better explanation of what exactly is going on. I read 92 pages in Allegiant today, getting me to 44%. I don't know when I'm going to finish this book because I am going to have a busy day tomorrow, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get anything read in Allegiant, but we will just have to see how all of that plays out. But let's go over my notes that I took today, and the ink kind of messed up on there. So I was correct about the Dauntless and how a lot of those ones that died really left the experiment to go. They can go, people who have like some, because there are other cities, Indianapolis being one, that was a failed experiment. Some of the people had the ability to join the Bureau and be a part of that community, or just go into the Fringe, which is just land outside of the cities, which it can be urban areas in the Midwest. In this book in particular, between Chicago and Milwaukee, which aren't that far from each other, all that in between is the Fringe, where that is basically is anarchy out there. It's a wild place. So you can either go there or you can live with the Bureau. How's the Bureau still around? Because it seems like it's been 200 years from when the Chicago experiment started to where the characters are now. I think it was 7 generations is what was said, and that's usually, I'm going by the 30-year rule for generations. So I'm wondering, are there other government agencies? Is there a government? Does the United States still exist? I have some questions about that, which I cannot wait to go on like Reddit after I finish the series, because I have so many questions. My next point is in chapter 17. So it is other cities do have factions. That is something they just started. I think St. Louis and Minneapolis, maybe Detroit, I'm not remembering there. I think there was one other, but they are all adapting the faction process because it did work so well in Chicago. I know that's ironic, but it did work well compared to places like Indianapolis where they were making bombs and it got very violent, and didn't go so well. So they are trying different things. And at the Bureau, the people who work there it's like a monarchy, really. Like, it goes generation to generation. It's not like the other government agencies where they go out and hire people. It's just you're raised to be in that role. I am wondering if people in the Fringe do know what's going on in the cities, and if the other cities know there are other cities. So I'm assuming not, since our characters in Chicago weren't aware. But I am curious about the people in the Fringe. Like, I would love a book set in this universe that's in the Fringe. Just knowing what these people know, what kind of lore and legends they have about the cities that are secluded off. I think that would be very interesting. So go to the weekly wrap-up. I completed one book this week, that being Insurgent. It was good. It was a 3.25. The angst in that bothered me, but I did enjoy the plot, and the ending was as action-packed, and I really enjoyed that. So I am still reading Allegiant and plan to read that over the weekend, but once I finish that, I'm going to be reading 4, which is a short story bind-up of 4's perspective in the Divergent series. For next week's vlog, we'll probably still be reading that, and if I'm done with that, we're going to be focusing on my mood readings. So some of these most likely still Lincoln, because Lincoln will take me a while to get through. It's a tome, so we will just have to see where that goes. I'm thinking maybe we do some binge reading next week, how this week was spoilery stuff. So with 4, we will keep that being spoilery and then jump to doing binge reading with the mood reading. Again, we will just have to see where the week takes me, but I have hauled 1 book this week with Daggermouth, and I have read over 100 pages every day this week. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it all the way through, leave a beach emoji in the comments below, and as always, comment, rate, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. I'll see you in my next one. Bye!